Hi, Homeschool friends, welcome back. We are in Unit 3 on the learning profile in our 6 steps for planning a homeschool for kids with special needs. And in this unit, we've been talking about the 5 developmental domains and how every child has strengths and weaknesses, and the developmental domains that represent each of us track with us all the way from birth through adulthood, all the way through the lifespan. This is what makes up humanness. And so we went through what each of these areas means, but now I want to show you the practical aspect of how to use a child's strengths to leverage growth in the weaker areas. And especially if we're working with unique learners, whether they've been diagnosed with a specific learning need or not, we definitely can figure out where their weaker areas are, and we can use the strengths or the preferences of the child to help with those weaker areas. So in this video, I want to walk through a form that's in the back of your Learning Plan Success Kit. It's in the back in the appendix, and it looks like this. It's got developmental profile at the top. And in this video, I actually want to show you the practical aspect about how to use this form. Don't worry. I know there's a lot of terms that may be new, but this is so easy. You're going to be fine. And if you need to, fill it out the way you see and know your child, because as a parent, you know your child better than anybody does. And if you need a little assistance in looking at the profile, the strengths and weaknesses, you're welcome to shoot me an email or send me a message and say, hey, Sue, would you help me look at this? And I'll be happy to do that. Just communicate with me and I'm happy to share with you. So I'm going to switch my camera here. And I want to look at a specific paper copy, a printed out copy of this. And I want to fill this form out for one of my students. And I'm going to call her Maddie. And Maddie is 9, and she's just finishing off 3rd grade and going into 4th grade. And so I want to look at where her weaknesses are and where her strengths are. I'm going to look in each of the developmental domains, and I'm just going to consider each of the specific skills as they are. I'm going to walk through the way I think it through, and you'll see it's actually really easy. So the first thing is, how's her growth? Is her height and weight adequate for her age? And you can go by the last well child check that you've had at the doctor for your child. Typically, they'll take their height and weight and put it on a little graph for you, and then they'll show you if they're above or below the 50th percentile or the average, and you can go by that. And I know that Maddie is fine. She's growing just fine. She eats and sleeps just fine. Occasionally, she wakes up in the middle of the night and is a little afraid, but she eats healthy foods and she sleeps fine for the most part. Her gross or large motor skills are fine. She's not klutzy. She runs and jumps and skips and moves, and her activity level is appropriate. She's not hyperactive and moving all the time, nor is she lethargic and sitting on the couch and just doesn't want to do anything. She's a girl who's very active and loves to learn. And her fine motor or handwriting is nice. She's got good pencil control. I can read her writing, and she may not do as much as some other kids do at that grade level, but I'm not concerned about what other kids are doing. I want to know what her strengths are. And that's definitely, she has pretty handwriting. I'm going to put sensory processing here, not because I think Maddie has issues, but Maddie has an older brother that's a couple years older than she is that has pretty severe autism, and he does have sensory seeking behaviors. He likes to be scratched and itched and squeezed and rubbed a lot. And I've noticed that Maddie doesn't typically have those issues, but when we're doing something that I call having a higher cognitive load, meaning we're doing an academic skill that's not so easy for her, Maddie's hair itches, or her hair is bugging her, or she has an itch on her shoulder. So I'm kind of wondering if she's picking up some sensory kind of behaviors from her brother, or if she truly has some sensory processing issues. I'm going to put a question mark here because I want to keep a watch on that. Maddie is old enough. I'm just going to cross off readiness, color, shape. She knows those and has known them for a long time. However, her spoken language, she actually puts words together very well in sentences, but I've noticed that she mispronounces a lot of words. If it's a new word, she often will hear it incorrectly and say it back to me with either wrong sounds in the word, like sprint versus splint. But memory for new words is kind of difficult, and they are often mispronounced. Maddie knows all her letter sounds, but her reading and writing is still low. She's about first, second grade level, moving into second grade level. That's definitely a weak area for Maddie. Numbers, she's very good with place value and regrouping, and she's just finishing off a third grade math text. And she's been working on her multiplication facts. So I think for next year, I'm going to move her into a fourth grade math text and keep reviewing the times facts. And I'm going to say that's a strength for her. Now, social studies is a weaker area. She just struggles in getting the concepts and remembering the vocabulary that goes with social studies. But science she loves because it tends to be more hands-on. She likes the experiments and the projects that we do, and she just enjoys science. Now, maybe she's oriented to math and science and not to the language areas. However, because she loves the hands-on in science so much, I might use that as a leverage and integrate that more into social studies and do some more projects and hands-on things. Her attention, I'm going to say, is a weaker area, mostly because Maddie really struggles to organize her stuff. And she has a pretty short attention span for her age. She really likes, she'll sit for a while and she'll get up and move. And she's got to take something to the garbage just to move, or she's got a squirming in her seat and needs to stand up for a while. By the way, that's okay. In a homeschool environment, you can have as flexible seating and do your school wherever you want. Do it outside on your playground equipment if you've got any in your backyard, or do it on the patio, do it at the dining room table, do it on the couch. So that's something, though, that I might want to keep a watch on. However, her memory is great, except for mispronouncing words and kind of learning some vocabulary. Mostly her memory is great and her visual skills are excellent. She loves to draw. She's very creative and artistic, and she loves to draw. Her auditory skills, though, I'm not so sure. Sometimes she needs to have, if I give her some information, she'll ask to have it repeated, or she doesn't quite understand, or she has a little difficulty following directions. So I want to work on following directions this year. And yeah, I want to keep a watch on that. Her reasoning and logical thinking skills are strong for her age, though. And Maddie loves mazes. Again, that's another visual skill, isn't it? So visual and hands-on are very strong for Maddie, but the auditory and the reading, anything that goes with language areas is a little weaker. There's a pattern coming. In social, she gets along very well with her family, even with her brother who needs assistance. She treats him as a sibling. She's kind. She gives him direction, but she doesn't take over and be bossy. With friends, she is a little bossy sometimes, but that's also pretty age appropriate. And she's very well behaved in public and has conversations with other adults. She's awesome. Socially, she's very strong. Emotionally, she's got great facial expressions. She can regulate her emotions most of the time. However, I've noticed since COVID, I'm going to put this with a question mark. I've noticed that she has some anxieties, and they're kind of random and by themselves, they may not be a thing, but there's just so many of them that I want to, if I'm going to keep a watch on it, if I need to, I'll contact a play therapist and see if we're dealing with some anxiety, mild anxiety issues, or if it's just nothing. And it just happens to be the season of a pandemic and post-pandemic. Her self-esteem is strong, though. She knows she's smart and she's very confident, and she's a very fun girl. All right, she learns and follows rules. That's a little different than following directions, but she obeys the rules and knows what they are. She respects her parents and she respects her peers. Careful with property. That one, we need maybe to do some habit training or something, because she loses stuff from the organizational skills. She's always looking for where to place that now. And she breaks stuff. She's always taping and gluing and fixing something that got broken, mostly because she left it lay or she just didn't take care of it. So more than seeing that as a true weakness, I think we just may need to do some habit training, although it could easily go along with her short attention span and her auditory skills. So I'll keep a watch on them. And absolutely, she's trustworthy and responsible, a very sweet and pleasant girl. I love Maddie. She's fun. Now I want to show you a very different profile that I've already filled out. And this kid is Robert. Robert has a very different profile, and Robert has a known history of prenatal exposure to various substances. And he's a very different kid. First of all, he's a boy who's 16. He's going into 10th grade, and we know for sure that he had been exposed to different substances before he was even born. And he also had some early childhood trauma history too. So height and weight, when it was last checked, was a strength. He was just above the 50th percentile. He's good and healthy, and his eating and sleeping is still quirky, but he's growing. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. His gross and large motor movements are right on target, and he doesn't need adaptive physical education. His muscle tone is fine. His activity level is strong. He used to be quite hyperactive, but as he's gotten older, that's kind of tempered and toned down a little bit. However, his fine motor skills are very weak. You can't read his handwriting. He does work on a computer and he can use a mouse, but he can't type very well. And he doesn't really want to practice. He does have some sensory issues, seems to be sensory seeking toward water. He really likes to be wet. He likes to swim. He likes to take baths and showers. He just likes to have water on him. His readiness skills, color, shapes are fine. However, his language skills, he can put together complete sentences, but sometimes they don't make sense, and they're very limited. He's got okay vocabulary, but his conversations are pretty limited. The school district actually wants to take a look at screening for autism and somewhere on the spectrum, certainly not severe, but it may be another piece that's impacting reading and writing. He still doesn't know all his letters, and his reading and writing are at about a first, second grade level. With some accommodations, though, he's able to do about fourth grade paragraph writing if he's given accommodations of speech to text, meaning dictating either to a person or in Google Docs or some kind of technology help. His math is a little bit stronger, but it's still a weakness. He's still working on third, fourth grade level multiplication and fractions. We, again, use accommodations and a calculator. So social studies and science, though, are strength areas. He learns the concepts and the vocabulary pretty easily, although he's just not interested in much. The interest level is pretty low. His attention, he used to be extremely hyperactive. Like I said, that's toned down a little bit, but he still has a lot of trouble focusing and sustaining concentration for any period of time, more than 10 or 15 minutes. His memory is very low. That's the main thing that was impacted by the prenatal exposure. And that is probably the main thing that's impacting reading and writing specifically, because his symbolic processing is so very weak. Symbolic processing is putting the sounds to letters or the numeral concept with a number symbol. And that's very difficult for Robert. I put strength for visual skills, however, though, because he's really good at visual kinds of puzzles and video games, not just the typical video games, but like phone games that require more matching and visual kind of skills. He's got pretty good logic skills, and he can do actually quite good character analysis in literature. So some of the things that he can do are actually near grade level, even though the academic skills are quite low. So it's really challenging to program for Robert because of the dichotomy between his extreme weaknesses, and yet he's got near grade level strengths. Socially, he has a difficult time getting along within the family. He has oppositional defiant disorder, and so following rules and following directions is very hard, and it takes a lot of patience to work with Robert. However, with friends, he loves friends, and he's kind and he's generous, almost to a fault, almost to being taken advantage of. So we kind of have to watch that, but this is definitely one of his strength areas. And he's very good with others and behaving in public and getting along with people in society. Robert has good facial expressions. However, his emotional regulation has improved a lot, but he's still very impulsive. So his self-control isn't there. He's not quite ready to be a driver. He is at that age where he wants to take his driving test or take driver's ed. And it's just not going to be happening yet because he still has too many issues with impulsivity. But his self-esteem is good. He sees himself as smart. He likes his life, and Robert's a pretty cool kid. For the moral and spiritual, he learns and follows rules, and yet he doesn't because he forgets. The memory issues show up here a lot. And he does respect authority, but he doesn't like to be in trouble. So I didn't put that down here, but he will lie if he thinks he's in trouble. So we just have to make sure that we interact with him in a way that makes him feel safe and not attacked, so that we can get an honest answer and help him problem solve. Respecting peers and others, absolutely, he loves his friends, and he goes above and beyond to be a friend. However, he's always losing and breaking things. Always. It's almost unconscious. It's in a different way, different than Maddie's. Hers has more to do with her organizational skills. This is more like a subconscious, just fiddling and fidgeting with things. And because of that, he breaks them a lot. And he's a teenager. So I tell you, we go through a ton of earbuds because he's constantly breaking earbuds. And is he trustworthy? Yes, he's responsible and trustworthy, but because of some of the learning and following rule things, and we have to keep a watch on that. So anyway, I just wanted to show you how very different each kid can be. And sometimes you can see pretty clear patterns, and other times you're going to have a scattering and not really know, what do I do with this kid? So to wrap it up, this was a pretty quick and easy guide to go through just at a glance. You don't need a formal diagnostic evaluation. Just go by what you observe. In the next video, we're going to go into a little more, even yet, in-depth profile that you can use if your child has had a formal diagnostic assessment, or you can go by your observations and gut sense for that one too. But for now, I hope that's helped. Print out your version in your Learning Plan Success Kit. Try it out, see if you see any patterns, and I will see you in the next video. All right, have a great afternoon or evening, or I guess morning. All right, bye.